This video is over the second half of your spring final exam. Number 15, Mindy's mother filled her car's gas tank with 10.4 gallons of gasoline. If the gasoline cost $3.35 per gallon, how much did Mindy's mom pay for the gasoline? If necessary, round to the nearest cent. So for some students, they would read this problem and they might be able to know exactly what operation they need to use. If not, you can always set up a proportion to help you figure out which operation you need to do. So we know that in a proportion, the left side is always the facts. Well, in this problem, we know that 1 gallon of gasoline is $3.35. And we know that her mom used 10.4 gallons. So my proportion, if I have gallons on top, I need gallons on top of my second ratio as well. Dollars on bottom, dollars on bottom. So we want to know how much for 10.4 gallons of gasoline. When you cross multiply here, you'll see that you need to multiply in this problem. So 3.35 times 10.4. Remember, when you multiply decimals, they do not have to be lined up. Whenever you get your answer, it comes out to $34.84. Number 16, a 2-pint bottle of soy sauce costs $1.79. If the unit price remains the same, meaning it's not going to get any more expensive or any cheaper per pint, how much will 2 gallons of soy sauce cost? So you're given the formula chart, and you're given, on this particular piece of paper, you're given these conversions. But for some people, rather than having to set up proportions, it might help you to look at a visual of how many pints would be in gallons. So I'm going to have this big box represent a gallon. And we know by looking at this little chart, a gallon has 4 quarts. So quart, 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 and quart. And then we also know 1 quart has 2 pints. So each one of these quarts has 2 pints in it. So really, my whole entire gallon has 8 pints. Well, the question's asking, how much will 2 gallons cost? So if I have 2 gallons, I have another 8 pints. So total, I know that I need to find the cost for 16 pints. So going back to the first part of the problem, we know that a 2-pint bottle costs $1.79. So we want to know how much would it cost for 16 pints. So you would cross multiply $1.79 times 16 and then divide that product by 2. And when you do that, you should get B as your answer. Number 17, modeling multiplying fractions. So the first fraction you're going to model, 1/2. So divide your square in half, shade one of the halves. The second part, shade the second fraction. My second fraction is 1/2, so shade 1/2 as well. You could shade the top or the bottom, it doesn't matter. And that's all that you have to do for these problems is just model it. So my second one, I have 1/3. So I'm going to divide my square into thirds. I'm going to shade one of my thirds. My second fraction is 1/2. Divide my fraction in half, shade 1/2 of it. My third problem, 2/3. Divide it into thirds, again, and shade 2 of the 3 this time. Times 1/3, divide it into thirds, but this time I'm only going to shade one of them. Now, obviously on your test, because it's on an answer document, bubbling, you won't have to do the modeling yourself, but you may be given some problems where you have to pick the correct model, or maybe they give you the model and you have to pick which expression matches it. So you need to make sure that you understand how the modeling works. Number 18, Haley has volunteered to make costumes for the spring play. She needs to make 6 Jester costumes. Each Jester costume requires 4 3/4 yards of fabric. How much fabric will Haley use in all? So if each one takes 4 3/4, I need to multiply by 6 to find out how much I need for all 6 of them. Now, whenever we have mixed numbers, we have to change them into improper fractions before we can actually calculate. So to change 4 3/4 into an improper fraction, 4 times 4 is 16, plus 3 is 19. So I have 19/4 times the whole number 6/1. You can start multiplying right away, or if you want, you can cross simplify. 4 divided by 2 is 2. 6 divided by 2 is 3. Now you can multiply straight across. 2 times 1 is 2, and 19 times 3 is 57. Change your improper answer back into a mixed number, and you get 28 and 1/2. So really, she could make, she would need 28 and 1/2 yards of fabric for all 6 of those costumes. Number 19, Mrs. Wilcox ran 5 1/4 miles on Saturday and 4 2/3 miles on Sunday. How many more did she run on Sunday than Saturday? It's kind of backwards. It meant to say how many more did she run Saturday than Sunday. So we have 5 1/4 minus 4 2/3. When we add and subtract, we have to find a common denominator. Common denominator for 4 and 3 will be 12. 4 times 3 is 12. 1 times 3 is 3. 3 times 4 is 12. 2 times 4 is 8. Now, I cannot subtract 8 from 3, so I'm going to have to borrow. Borrow from the 5, he now becomes just a 4. If I borrowed a whole, add your whole back, 12 twelfths. So really, my 3 and my 12 equal 15 twelfths. Now I can do 15 minus 8, which is 7 twelfths as my answer. Number 19, Maggie had 5/10 of her birthday cake left after her party. She put half of what was left in the freezer. Which diagram is shaded to show the part of the cake she put in the freezer? Remember, these keywords of mean to multiply. So she put half of, so multiply the 5/10 that she had left. 1 times 5 is 5, 2 times 10 is 20. So which one of these models correctly shows 5/20? And that's A. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 shaded out of 20 total. Explain the steps in order to when you're dividing mixed numbers. So the first thing you always need to do is convert mixed numbers into improper fractions. Then we find the reciprocal of the second fraction, not the first one. The first one we keep the same. We flip, find the reciprocal of the second one. Then we multiply those two fractions together, numerator times numerator, denominator times denominator. And then if your answer ends up being an improper fraction, make sure you convert it back into a mixed number in the end. 22, Nicole has a circular trampoline in her backyard. The trampoline is 12 feet in diameter. There's a net around the outside edge of the trampoline that's 2 feet farther from the trampoline's edge. So part A asks, what's the circumference of the net? So in this picture, my net's the dotted line. And they tell us that the net comes out 2 feet further than the trampoline. So if this was my net, the diameter of the actual net is 2 plus 12 plus 2, which is 16. So if I want to find the circumference of that, circumference is equal to pi times diameter. So 3.14 times the diameter of the net, which is 16. And when you multiply that out, you get 50.24. Now, second part asks what's the area of the bottom of the trampoline. So back to just the trampoline portion, just this piece with the diameter of 12. Area. Area is equal to pi times the radius squared. Pi has a value of 3.14 times the radius. If my diameter is 12 here, my radius is half of that, which is 6. So 6 squared. When you multiply that out, you get an area of 113.04. You will not be able to use a calculator on your test, so make sure that you feel comfortable multiplying these values out that have decimals. A rectangular garden has a length of 10 feet and a width of 8. So here's my garden, the shaded middle portion. 8 and 10 are my dimensions. The family that owns the garden wants to install a fence around it that is 2 feet away from the garden. How much fencing will they need? So I want to find basically the perimeter, this outer box, because we want to find out how much fencing we're going to need. We know we want a 2 feet gap between the garden and the fence. So really, my length of my fence needs to be 10 plus 2 plus 2, which is 14. Same for my width, 2 foot gap. So 8 plus 2 plus 2 is 12. Now you have the information to find out how much fencing material you will need, which comes out to 52 when you add that all up. Find the area of the rectangle that's shaded. So here's my rectangle that's shaded. It starts at 0 and goes to 10. So I can see that this base has a length of 10. My height goes from 0 to 18. So that has a length of 18. The area of a rectangle is length times width. So 18 times 10, which is 180 square units. 25, what's the first step in order of operations to solve the expression below? So following order of operations, our first step would be the grouping. Well, in this problem, I have parentheses. That's considered part of grouping. So the first step that I would actually calculate would be the 7 times 8. Which of the following should be performed first to simplify this expression? Well, we know grouping comes first, but we don't have any grouping here. We don't have parentheses or brackets. The next step in order of operations is exponents. So this 3 squared piece would be my actual first piece of calculation for this problem. Which of the following expressions equals 40? So all of these different expressions have the same numbers and signs. They just have parentheses in different spots. But according to order of operations, parentheses is our first step. So it does end up changing the answer, the value to the problem. When you end up working these out, following order of operations, for A, you get 2. For B, you should get 26. For C, 40. And for D, 26. So C ends up having the largest value. Or I'm sorry, C ends up having the value of 40, which they're looking for. And then the last one, which of the central tendencies is not correct? Central tendencies are mean, median, mode, and range. It's just kind of a fancy name for those. So we're trying to find out which one of them is not correct. So in this case, you're going to want to find all 4 values, mean, median, mode, and range, and find out which one of them is not listed as correct here. Remember, the mean is the average, so add up all your values and divide by the number of numbers. So here I would add up all my dollar amounts and divide by 4, because I have 4 dollar amounts. The median, put them in order from least to greatest, and find the middle number. The mode is the number that occurs the most. The range is the greatest value minus the least value. Once you solve all of those, you'll end up finding out that the range is the one that's incorrect here. The range is not 1370. The range should have been 24.3.